Welcome, everyone. Thank you so much for joining us for what Siggy and I would perceive to be the most exciting topic on the reInvent catalog. We're really excited to be here with you today to discuss Gen AI and all cool things. My name is Brittany Anderson. I'm part of the Innovation and Transformation programs at AWS. Basically, what we do is we help organizations on their broader digital and innovation transformation journeys. So we're dealing, and we'll raise today, a lot of different use cases and examples of stuff, exciting stuff we've been working on with customers, and take you through it end to end. Without further ado, Siggy, will you introduce yourself?
Thank you very much. So also very excited to be here. Siggy, I'm also part of the innovation program, and just expanding a little bit on Brittany's intro, the innovation program is part of our partnership commitment to our customers. So we both share certain mechanisms, ways of working in Amazon, also from operating companies. You will see some examples later on. But also we take customers from the ideation to the minimal valuable product, really to make digital technology and bring it to life. Today, we are excited, Brittany, because
Super
the first
excited.
time we're on stage together.
Yeah.
Oh gosh. You need to rescue me if I do anything wrong.
Definitely, I
Okay,
got you.
cool. Now, Brittany, as I said, we are doing quite a bit of engagements with customers, roughly 200 a year in the EMEA region, for example. And the predominant theme in 2023 is customer experience and generative AI. And maybe you can elaborate a little bit why you think that is.
Of course, of course. So obviously, with the mass rise in adoption of generative AI, we've seen implications on various different lines of business. Today, the focus of our discussion is really going to be around customer experience. And when we look at customer experience more broadly, right, it's something that comes to life through actions of multiple lines of business, right? So if you look at the slide up here, you've obviously got customer service and operations as one key element, but then you've also got your sales and channel part of the organization that's looking to drive it. And as we expand and look into lines of business like marketing too, they've all got an imperative implication and impact, right, on customer experience and how we drive it at scale. When we look at generative AI more broadly, we obviously know it's top of mind in terms of most C-suite agendas and focus areas, but where we're really seeing the impact in terms of the work we're doing with customers is in improving customer service and operations. So that's really going to be the focus and the lens for the discussion today, and what we're going to take you through. So, Siggy, I know there's multiple different definitions of customer experience within different organizations. They all view it differently and interact with it differently. And me and you often debate the difference between customer experience and customer centricity more broadly. I know you have a famous Iceberg slide that you take us through to illustrate the difference, so I'll leave it with you.
Well, you mentioned the Iceberg slide, yes. Well, there's really quite a debate between Brittany and myself on what is customer experience versus customer centricity. And what I would like to advocate for is we all, I'm sure, invest a hell of effort into getting the customer experience right in terms of the omni-channel journey, how you mobilize data, and all that good stuff. This is great, and we shouldn't stop that, and we will have a couple of examples also underpinning this. But what I would like to stress here is there is so much more to think about to drive really a customer-centric way of dealing with customers. And that's the iceberg. So we have the tip of the iceberg, we have the customer experience layer, but then there's about what is the culture, how you drive a customer-centric culture. What are the sustainable ways of working to make sure every product, every solution you bring to your customers is really done in a customer-centric way. Or as well, how you may ensure people have ownership. They feel responsible for the customers, and they really do their best to solve an issue, even if it's not their direct problem or direct responsibility. And last but not least, tenets. Tenets is maybe a little bit of an Amazonian term. It describes the guardrails, how teams are operating, and we will link later a little bit how tenets are interconnected, also how you use technology to support that and to support the employee. Well, actually, one key mechanism I would like to talk about, and it's an innovation track, so my colleagues would be very angry with me if I'm not at least mentioning it, working backwards. Who of you has been exposed to working backwards already? One, two. Okay, there are a lot of colleagues and in the audience who have not been exposed to working backwards. So let me bring you a little bit to light what working backward means, and then Brittany will follow up with a concrete example. Working backwards is super simple. You bring a team together, business, IT, maybe HR, so the relevant people in one room, and you try to solve 5 questions. And the first question, very simple one, who is the customer we want to solve the problem for? Sometimes these simple questions can take a day or 2 days to answer, and people start fighting about it. You ask, what is the customer problem or opportunity we're really trying to solve? What do we need to fix? And the reason why I'm bringing up working backwards here is GenAI is a hype. And I'm sure that every enterprise in the room is trying to get the best out of GenAI. But how do you channel this? How do you make sure this technology is relevant for what your customers really need? And this is where working backwards come into play. And working backwards, and I don't want to bore you with all the questions, but these are the guiding questions which lead to 3 simple steps. And the first step is a press release. A press release is 1 page, and I promised you an example in a second. The press release is 1 page, and on this 1 page, you unify the view from the perspective of the customer. So you describe the problem you like to solve with GenAI, with all the fancy technology. You describe the problem purely with the words of the customer. These documents are created by a mixed group from IT, business, HR, and related parties. Now you can imagine if you start writing this 1 page, and the 1 page puts you in the position you communicate to the public in a newspaper. This is the benefit we do for the customer. Old situation, new situation, what do we gain? What did the customer gain? Sometimes this document, this 1 page, gets iterated 30, 40 times because people start fighting about it. And the reason why they start fighting about it, because you have so many different perspectives. You have people think about the solution. I already know the solution. We don't need to discuss anything. I get this tool, everything is solved. And then you have other perspectives. And to bring these perspectives literally on 1 page has a superpower to make sure you democratize the solution and the idea across the whole organization. You get your CEO on board, you get your data people on board, you get the IT on board, and so on. And it brings really the solution you want to do for the customer to life. And these documents then can be expanded with frequently asked questions, where you go into more detail, like a newspaper. You read a newspaper, oh, what the heck is this? How do they do this? And then you find that question in the frequently asked questions. So it's a living document for the whole design cycle of a solution to make sure technology hits the most important thing, the customer need you want to address. And Brittany, I was promising an example you worked recently on, and bring the example to life, please.
Yeah, of course. I think really the important part of bringing working backwards into this discussion, Siggy, is centered around, as we said earlier, right, generative AI is a hype, but often organizations really struggle with how to grapple with it, right? Where do we apply generative AI first? It's pretty overwhelming. We've got a direct board imperative to drive this throughout the business, but we have no idea where to start, right? So I think the important thing is taking a step back, right? Really understanding the different functional areas that generative AI can have an impact with and within. And then looking overall, right? We've got multiple different use cases. For example, in this, we were working with a global customer that was looking to reinvent their customer service and operations function worldwide. So we took a step back with them. We understood what are the various use cases that we could focus in within the general realm of generative AI. And then more importantly, right, where should we focus in first? What should be our top priority use case that we really flesh out in detail and work through, leveraging working backwards to make sure that we're focusing on the right high impact use cases first. And why this is important, right, is obviously with multiple different areas to apply generative AI, we're often seeing and working with customers that some of the use cases we thought that would be empowered by generative AI more broadly can be solved for with traditional AI ML models, right?
Yeah,
so
absolutely.
There's this delineation between what really requires generative AI and what can be solved for with AI ML alone. What's really key in this use case is just to really focus in on the inputs, the actual product you develop, and then the outputs that starts to drive for the organization, and be really clear around what are those business impacts, business metrics, right, that will come out the other end if we were to experiment with this live.
Yeah. No, thank you very much. And as you can see from the document, it's not a technical language, it's written from a customer language, it's addressing the solution element from that perspective. Now, Brittany, you mentioned use cases a couple of times. And now let's get into the first use case, how generative AI can help us to be more customer-centric. And during the working backwards piece, you might have spotted what is the customer problem we're trying to solve. Do we have enough data to understand this is really the problem we're trying to solve? And this is where data come into play. And the ability to analyze, to collect, connect, analyze, and act on data. And this is the section I would like to spend a little bit time on now. And there is one great news. I'm not sure how you are feeling about it, but I do not like working the home, cleaning the home, and all that stuff. So this is always a struggle at home, and we have to do plans and negotiations and so on. Now, seeing some people smiling, you know my pain. Pain is over, because we have Hoover-Troon RX5000. This is a brand new product. I already invested shares into that company, so if you want to join me, let me know later. This product is your magic solution to drive your household duties, and your partner will love it, because end of struggle, you can go out for dinner every night because RX5000 is doing the job. Well, RX5000 is not perfect yet. But people, of course, commenting on RX5000. So you get feedback, and you get a lot of anecdotal feedback for a product like this. And what is the connection to generative AI now? So let's look briefly into what we do with analyzing customer feedback here. So you see famous influencers like Red Hot Pepper, not an anonymous user, Cool Cucumber. So you notice we have anonymized a little bit the data. Are giving feedback to this product. What we do now is we use all these feedback, and sometimes these are 10,000, 100,000 of feedbacks, anecdotal feedback. You bring them together, and you use GenAI to get, first instance, a summary. It gives you the ability to digest data, massive textual anecdotal data, in a much easier, smarter way to get the first step. But that's only the first step, because in the second step, you start asking questions. And one question is, does the robot ruin the furniture? No? It's an example, guys. Be patient with me. And you get a whole argumentation, you got a whole interpretation of the customer feedback around these questions. Another question, which definitely is very important, especially for pet lovers, does the robot get along with the pets at home? And so we could play that endless now. It's just getting the concept, the idea across. Generative AI's key capability is not only to generate new content from existing content, but also interpret content on a wider scale. And using this approach, using generative AI to analyze customer feedback, is one of the backbones how we drive also customer centricity in Amazon. We have been doing that for a long time with traditional AI already. So analyzing not only the NPSs, the CSATs, and all that quantitative information, but really using the anecdotes to be close to customers. With generative AI now, you have a different way to interpret this. And don't rush me.
I'm not rushing.
Oh, you're rushing me?
Go
No?
ahead.
Okay, good.
You got this.
Now, why is this so important? And it's so important because we all capture structured and unstructured feedback today. Ask yourself how well your company is currently able to work with unstructured feedback. Call center transcripts, emails, chats, like in the robot example, what is it called? Feedback from customers, reviews for it. And the next important thing is, how do you share this feedback across the organization? I was touching a little bit on the Iceberg, if you remember. And Iceberg had one word, culture. And a strong customer-centric culture makes sure you use your customer feedback data and share with the organization to know where are we excellent, where are we good, where do we need to improve. So also this is a great way to bring these data to life. Just to give you one anecdote around anecdotes. When you have a business review in Amazon, these business reviews do not start with data in terms of what is the NPS score, what is the CSAT, how that has it moved. They start with the 3 most relevant anecdotes of the week with the senior management. This is changing the way how you think about your customer, because you suddenly feel the voice of your customer within the anecdotes. And here, generative AI gives you that expanded capability to analyze this. And then last but not least, it's not only about collecting the data and connecting the data, it's also about having the ability to act on the data. And Brittany, you will show a pretty cool example in a second.
Yeah.
When you find something in your data, when the anecdotes tell you a story about customer dissatisfaction, how fast can you act upon it? And what we have implemented is, we have implemented automatic support, for example, for the people doing the product management or the product descriptions. And here again, generative AIs help you to identify issues in, for example, product descriptions. It helps you to generate better, more improved, to be worked through from the product managers, for example. And this is the cool example you're showing us now?
Yeah, exactly.
Okay, I do it now. It works?
Say you need to create collateral around a new line of solar-powered bicycles. Just type a couple of keywords for your product, and AWS's generative AI capabilities will generate an image and description based on your input in a matter of seconds. Foundation models running on AWS can transform your text input into a variety of marketing materials, from press releases to internal communications memos to social media ad copy. You can even adapt your content for different audiences by generating new collateral across multiple styles and tones. Do you want to enhance or upscale blurry photos for a blog post? Our generative AI capabilities can enlarge the image and increase the photo quality to fit your publishing specifications.
Do you want to go ahead, Sigi, to the slide on the dashboard?
Yes,
slide
so
first,
I
please?
promised you to flip there.
Yeah,
We had a
thank
little
you.
bit of a tech hiccup in between, so sorry for flipping now through.
I think it's coming soon.
Here it
Let's take a
is.
look at how business analysts and end users can harness the power of generative BI. We'll start as an analyst, creating a new sales dashboard. We can use the new Generative Visual Builder.
Hi, I did it wrong. Apologize. Sorry. We get there again. I ruined your presentation.
That's okay.
Okay, that's fine.
Let's take a look at how business analysts and end users can harness the power of generative BI. We'll start as an analyst, creating a new sales dashboard. We can use the new Generative Visual Builder from QuickSight Q to create the visuals we need using simple natural language. To create a visual, I just describe the data I want to see. I can easily change chart types or add analytics such as a forecast. Let's build a couple more. Let's do sales by product by city. And let's create a breakdown of regional sales by segment as a Sankey diagram. Each visual we create is interactive and completely customizable, the same as if you built it from scratch. Generative BI can also be used to create calculated fields. Just describe what you want to calculate. Let's do month over month, free trial, % change by date, so we can analyze the delta in trial signups over time. Once we save this calculation, the data is ready to use. Let's check it out. I'll create a new visual that combines order date and the field we just made. To polish this visual, I'll use the generative editor to describe the changes I want. Let's change the date granularity to month, add color by region, and change the chart type to a vertical stacked bar. Looks great. The dashboard is ready to publish. Now, let's see how generative BI can help the business user who's going to use this dashboard. As a business user, I can quickly create polished stories using natural language that are tailored to my needs. This saves me hours or even days. Today, let's create a story about increasing the conversion of free trial customers into paying accounts so we can boost sales. In seconds, our story is ready. It has multiple sections filled with AI-generated text, combined with visuals from our dashboard. The story is customizable. For example, I see this paragraph is about bundling features, but it's missing a visual. I can easily bring in any visual I have access to. Here at the bottom, I see the next steps section is written as a paragraph, but I think bullets would be more effective. The generative editor allows me to use large language models to summarize this content in different ways. It is that easy. As a business user, I can now share this story with my team to help them drive towards better data-driven decisions.
Ooh, that's spooky, isn't it? If I remember how many hours in my life I spent on Excel spreadsheets and similar stuff, my God. Well, there's one key message I would like to land before I hand over back to Brittany, is both the robot example, where you use natural language to access data, to have a complex context of information and boil it down to something tangible, by the business department, by the marketing department, by the controlling department, whatever, by business users. Exactly here, this helps you to digest data in a much more easier way and to streamline what you're looking for. Why is this so relevant? It's not because of saving time, but it's about taking out the translation issue between business and IT and get more responsibility also to the business users to make sure they use the available data, they build on the value of the data the company is offering. And I think that's what you're alluding now to.
Exactly.
How do we drive a data-driven culture?
Yeah, exactly. And I think something I want to touch on, Siggy, which maybe we didn't give enough prominence to, was when we're discussing and debating this with customers, right, so often we're talking about customer experience. But what's really important is that customer experience and employee experience are two sides of the same coin, right? If we look to optimize customer experience, we also need to pay attention to how is it, for example, we enable agents to do a more effective and more productive job. We enable agents the space and time to really use, natural human attributes like creativity and problem solving in different ways. So I think that's another element. Absolutely. Is you've seen it of like the product generation side of it, but also then how is it that you enable the employee experience to be more effective. Yeah, I'll go back. Let me see.
Go back?
Yeah, let me see if I can.
You don't trust me anymore with this clicking.
No, no, I've taken over. So what's really interesting is that, yes, we're grappling now with generative AI, and generative AI is obviously top of the hype cycle if we look at many analyst reviews. But what's really important is that data and AI/ML have been with us for a vast amount of time, right? And what's important is that in grappling with, the application of data, we've come to understand that there's certain business fundamentals and business basics that need to be in place in order for us to drive a culture that is really able to use and make sense of data more quickly and more rapidly. What's really important is from an AWS perspective, we really look at this through the lens of what we call a modern data community. So in the same way that organizations have uncovered benefits from decoupling and moving from obviously more monolithic IT infrastructures, the role of microservices and APIs, becomes important now. And this is a really fundamental cultural shift, not only in terms of how we think about data, but also how we democratize the ability to make sense of data more broadly across the organization. So fundamentally, what I'm trying to say here is instead of data being reliant on a single organization, most likely and most typically IT, we're able to disseminate the responsibility of the ownership and usage and consumption of data deeper into the organization, right? So pushing that responsibility and that capability to the edge, which really enables organizations to be more fast, more responsive, and more agile in terms of how they leverage data. In this construct of a modern data community, there really are three core areas and three capabilities, right? So we have our data producers, who are usually the teams that are sitting upstream, responsible more for the business and technology applications. These teams most likely have deep domain expertise and capability, and really take responsibility for the upstream data stewardship and data governance. What's really important is that they have this deep understanding of data quality. They're really focused in on metadata tagging, cataloging data in the right way, and making sure they explain and describe both the business and technical attributes of the data. They then publish these as products, right? And they assign service level objectives to it. And they obviously leverage what we now call the technology team to run the platform that fuels this data. So if we look at the data technology team, what's really important is that they hold overall responsibility and accountability for really the data ecosystem that underpins the organization, right? So they put in place the right standards and the right technology to really make sure that we're enabling this community of data more broadly. The platform team, obviously now, given the role of the producers, has a bit more autonomy to shift from focusing on more traditional tasks like monitoring, maintenance, and patching, to really ensure that they meet business objectives by supporting this community of innovation, right? So now, instead of having IT as a blocker to leveraging data, they really become an innovation bottleneck. They really now become an enabler at scale. Last but not least, and this is probably the most exciting part, is consumers, right? So these are the lines of business or different parts of the organization that really want to be able to use the data in ways that provide net new insights. So consumers are most typically teams, individuals, and even in the modern day now machines that want to use the data provided by the producers to solve for specific business priorities. Obviously, this is multiple lines of business, right? So it could be consumers from finance, from operations, from sales and marketing, as an example. And instead now of doing the value add work of really requesting access to data, understanding data quality, these teams now have access to reliable and really high quality data products that they can leverage now to run analysis on in the tool of their choice. And I think that was what the one example on the QuickSight dashboard so accurately showcased, right? If you have good quality data products, it becomes very easy through generative AI to understand and interpret that data and use it to drive better business decisions. Obviously, this transition happens over time, right? So this is not something that happens overnight, and Amazon specifically embarked on this journey of becoming data-centric in the 2000s, right, where we shifted from an organization that was
May I ask?
Go for it.
May I ask you a question?
Yes, go for it.
Because I think we're both familiar with the API mandate.
Yeah.
And one of the fundamental, I'm not sure, do you know the API mandate from Amazon, guys? Have you read about it, heard about it?
Open API mandate, yeah. Yeah.
You have?
Yeah.
Oh, okay, good. Cool. But the reason why I'm mentioning it is Brittany is talking about how we can make better use of data, how we change the organization for making better use of data, getting closer to the business. But it's also it means you need to have the culture to share data in an organization. And I think a lot of you might have the challenges, how do I access the data from maybe my logistics department to understand a full end-to-end process satisfaction I bring to my customers. And the API mandate, part of the API mandate is an obligation in Amazon and AWS to share your data. So every unit which is producing data is condemned by law to find a way to give interfaces to share these data as a self-service to other organizations, to make sure that you have enough speed and you can accelerate the way how you combine your data. I hope that fitted in your story.
I think so. Okay. And that logically leads us to the next step,
good.
right? So if we look at Amazon.com as an example, right, we experienced this in, as I said, early 2000s. But what's really interesting now is you start to understand, obviously, the value of data producers. So really focusing on, catalog browsing, order placements, et cetera, et cetera. We then developed what we call a technology marketplace, which was the scalable interface or technology domain that allowed us to publish this at scale. And now, for instance, what you have is you have multiple different lines of business. So say, for instance, Alexa, Prime, or even just Walk Out, that are able to leverage this data more scalably to provide, suitable and compelling customer experiences.
Shall we watch the dashboard again?
No, let's not do that. The last point I want to land, which I think is really important, is that this obviously has a large implication on skills within an organization, right? And what's really important is that we're hiring for the right skills. And then second to that is that we're reskilling, upskilling, and cross-skilling different team members who may be impacted by the application of generative AI to focus on higher value work, right, and higher value tasks that really bring value. So Siggy, we've done a deep dive now into obviously organizational constructs and sort of teams and product teams. Let's focus in a bit on customer service and operations.
Thank you. I need to say, I'm so impressed how easy you can talk about these complex constructs. I'm really impressed, Brittany. Well, let's go back to down-to-earth customer service operations. And what is the impact? Where can generative AI help us to improve customer service operation? Before I go there with some examples and use cases, I would like to give you a short view on what we call tenets. You might remember from the Iceberg, there were culture, mechanism, tenets, ownership, and the tenets are the guardrails how we operate our customer service. And the reason why I'm mentioning these tenets is there are some fundamental principles in there we put into technology, we use to drive certain technology solutions. And one I would like to, don't be afraid, I will not go across all 5, but one I would like to point out is escalate systematic problems. And if you want to improve your customer service operation, you need to be able to spot pain points. And you need to be able, when you spot a pain point, to capture the pain point, make sure you use it for improving your overall processes. Now ask yourself how easy it is for an employee of enterprise XYZ to capture an issue. Most of the employees help the customer, which is great. But how easy is it for the employee then to capture the issue, it getting locked, she gets constant feedback on that issue to make sure the employee is valued feels valued to share these knowledge and these issues to drive continuous improvement in customer processes.
Siggy, do you want to touch on the example of an and-on code there?
You could talk about the and-on.
Okay, so what's really cool, right? So what's implemented in Amazon.com is this concept of an and-on code, right? And really there was a long story behind it, but essentially Jeff himself was sitting with one of the customer service operations individuals, and he noted, so he was in dialogue with this colleague, and the colleague said, I can tell you, Jeff, the problem here is going to be that this desk is returned because it's got a defect on one of the legs, right? And Jeff said, how is it that you know that? How could you tell me about that before it happened, right? And he was like, because I've seen this happen on this specific product on multiple different occasions, right? And that really sparked this concept of we should be able to empower agents to make decisions, right, around reoccurring systemic problems that they're observing through interfacing with customers on a frequent basis. And basically what that does, you pull the and-on code that removes the specific product or service from the website, right, and enables, obviously, the relevant teams to solve for the problem underlying it, solves for problems.
As you said, you really empower the employee to decide for the customer, and this drives behavior as well. The other element, and thanks for the example, Brittany,
sure.
The other element I would like to stress here is reduce customer effort. And reduce customer effort, of course, is what is my maturity of digital self-services, how can I use context and maximize context to make the experience for the customer most beneficial. But it's also very much about how do I invest in my employees to let them do a good job when they contact the customer. And this is what we see a lot of times undervalued compared to trying to drive the customer journey in an ideal way, shortening down waiting times, improving on digital self-services. How do I make the employee a very savvy, a capable employee when when they are discussing with the customer, driving that forward? And this is where I would like to give another use case on how generative AI can help here.
Suggestions to help agents resolve customer calls faster. Thanks for calling Octech Insurance. My name is Alex. Whom do I have the pleasure of speaking with today? Thanks, Alex. My name is Carla, and I'd like to pay my bill. Absolutely, Carla. We can process your payment over the phone. I see that your car insurance balance is $75.34. How much do you want to pay? There's a $50 minimum. I'll pay $50. Great. Would you like to use the card that you have saved on file? If yes, can you please confirm the last 4 digits of your card number? Yes, it's 1, 2, 3, 4. Okay, let me enter that payment for you now. To help answer customer questions, Agent Assist draws on a library of FAQs, trusted knowledge sources, and unstructured documents to generate the best responses for your agents. I've just bought my first home. Do you guys offer home insurance? Congratulations, that must be so exciting. Yes, we offer home insurance policies that provide customized coverage tailored to your specific needs and risks. I'm interested in that. Can you describe it in more detail, please? Sure thing, just 1 second. We offer many types of homeowners insurance focused on dwelling coverage, contents coverage, and personal liability. Optional coverage includes flood, earthquake, and more. Agents can also interact directly with the Agent Assistant bot to find answers for the ongoing customer call. Once the call is complete, supervisors can drill into the details of specific calls or agents, from call sentiment to speaker time to volume and interruptions. Agent Assist also generates call summaries that let supervisors review call outcomes, delivering actionable business insights.
And what generative AI is doing here, it is maximizing the use of context. We all know these solutions are existing to a certain degree already, and you have some of these guidance. You saw there were empathy communicated during the call, there were guidance given to the agent. But what generative AI is changing, the amount of unstructured data you can add to the responses, how you can enrich the databases and crawling, searching, and connecting. I'm using a wrong English word here?
No, that's right.
You're smiling at me. Okay. Connecting all these information to give a better job to the agent to guide him through a conversation. And of course, you could do that in a digital world as well. Now, the other element which you saw in the example is the agent has a bot herself. And so the agent is able to type the questions in like a customer would do on a self-service to improve the question and to enrich the conversation, getting to more complex conversations, solving more complex issues. Now, this is great for a human being. It's not necessarily an effectiveness program you're driving with that. It's raising the quality of a conversation you can do. It's not giving you a full digital self-service. Let's get into that in a second with a heartbreaking example. What you also can do, of course, with the ability of generative AI to create context, you do a summary, you prepare an email for the agent so that she is able to immediately send out the communication to the customer with a certain quality standard and so on. So sometimes with real-time translation, I think we all can imagine how this can work. Just for curiosity, how many of you in your customer service operation are already using sentiment analysis as a constant mechanism to drive behavior or to monitor training needs for agents? Anyone already using sentiment analysis?
No one.
Not too much?
No.
I hope you find time to visit our Connect colleagues and all these great presentations coming the next days, just to give you a bit teaser here, to follow up on it. Well, the last use case I would like to share is, as I said, it's a heartbreaking story. This is a situation, you recognize the guy, looks like me almost. We are in Italy, car is broken, tire is broken, no clue how to change the tire, and so on. And in this situation, you feel the rising pain, the partner is already getting crazy because the kids are starting to cry and so on. We all can, I think, imagine the situation. It was a real situation I had in my life, actually, but then I didn't have that cool service I'm presenting now. Now, when I was buying that car, I was already using a digital advisor. And this digital advisor is sort of a buddy for my car provider, helped me to pick the right car, the right model, so the full guidance in the natural language. And now I'm remembering I will call the service again to share my pain. But now we are in trouble, you know. I'm here close to Verona, maybe 2 kilometers from Sona exit, and we have a flat tire. So I have no clue how to change the tire on that car. Any advice?
Oh dear, I'm sorry to hear you have a flat tire near Verona. My advice would be, do not panic, these situations happen. Refer to your vehicle's manual for jack and spare tire kit location. Drive directly to local garage to repair or replace flat tire. For example, a garage like Ortofficina Macatrice Formazioni in San Bonifacio should be able to help prepare safe travels.
And I felt really well treated with that example, because there were 2 elements which I think are quite strong. One is it's empathy. And if you have started to do your own AI bots, maybe some of you have already started, you can tell the system how to behave. And you can shape different personas with Gen AI bots, how they should react to customer responses. And bringing empathy in a customer conversation for sure kills it. Because bringing empathy gives you, especially in a situation like this where you're already stressed, maybe the bot hears even the wife crying in the back, it helps to make you relax, to make that a more meaningful conversation for the customer. The second element, which happened here, is I got an advice where to go. Because the bot was reaching out into not prescriptive, but content which were added to the capability of the bot, to the knowledge bases, where's the next garage and so on. And you could drive this even further, because generative AI, of course, is able to work with your knowledge bases, your ring-fence knowledge bases in your enterprise, secure environment. You can add certain repositories on top to enrich the interaction of the bot. It was a quite natural conversation as well. And there's a longer conversation we had with that bot. The interesting bit for me, and I'm sharing that story from a personal level here, is this was not a pre-trained bot. It was working with a simple model first, not optimized model. It was just asking a bot who got a bunch of materials on cars to advise me on the car, who got a bunch of materials on manuals, etc., and then he was driving me through a natural dialogue. And when I had that experience the first time, I thought, this is really powerful, because this brings digital self-service to the next level. And it helps us then really to drive economy in our customer service operation and to make sure that we can enlighten customers in a meaningful way. I know, Brittany, you are on my hacks here. It's my last slide, I think.
That's good.
Well, then over to you. You know that slide already. I hope we could give you a bit of a tour through different use cases and how generative AI is helping to bring value to customer conversations, to make you more informed, to get new insights. But then also, we touched a little bit on the relevance of this mechanism working backwards, the relevance of tenets, to have tenets, because a tenant drives you to think about how do I shape an employee conversation and a customer conversation to really have that tenant fulfilled, reduce customer effort. How do I bring in all these other tenets to life with technology, or for example, on the fact on eliminating systematic defects, again, where generative AI can help you to scroll through all the defects you spot to give you a more informed view what customers have been telling your agents or what has been situations. So that's the reason why I'm so super advocating for thinking in icebergs. Maybe I should next time I do an Iceberg, it's more cozy. But in icebergs, because the iceberg has this great technology tip, but make sure you also follow the cultural elements and implement it. And the ownership example was a great example with the Endon Court to make sure that the human behavior is really complementing what you can do with great technology now. Brittany, we are not done yet.
Not yet.
I hand over to you.
Awesome.
I do it for you.
I don't trust you with that. No, I'm kidding. Awesome. So thank you so much, obviously, for joining us here today. I think we, from an innovation and transformation programs perspective, would be super excited to partner with you on this journey. There are a number of different ways in which we can do so. So obviously, we've got some learning from Amazon sessions, which dive a bit more deep into, how did Amazon tackle and face certain challenges and overcome them? And then most importantly, right, get started on understanding where you're at with regards to customer experience and really focusing in on how is it that we can define that vision, start to look at the more, broad span roadmap and understand, most importantly, how we can get started with you on working backwards, the working backwards journey.
I would like to dive deep shortly on two elements here, if I may.
Go for it.
So one is, you mentioned customer experience maturity assessment.
Yeah.
And let me give you a little bit of a flavor what that means. It's a 20 question questionnaire. It's a questionnaire with 20 questions, which is spanning across multiple dimensions of how you run customer service operation, how you use data, how you bring processes, how you drive incentive system, and that sort of stuff. This we did recently with an insurance company with 800 participants filling this questionnaire. It creates a data-driven feedback to the management. Because all the fancy stuff we were talking about, at the very end, it's an investment. And you need to justify investments. And having this data-driven approach through the customer experience maturity assessment gives you the foundation to argue internally how to drive that forward. And then working backwards, maybe that's the other one.
Yeah.
I know it's a very theoretical concept if you just hear about it. It's something you need to feel. So every time we bring working backwards up, we encourage you to think about business challenges where we can help you to get you to a 1, 2, 3 day workshop series to really nail it down to something tangible, having your press releases, having your scoping of the prototype. Now, the interesting bit with generative AI, last time I mentioned generative AI now, is you even can use generative AI to optimize the way how you drive press releases, how you scope, how you do your specification for certain solutions. You can generate test data to a certain degree to underpin some of these assumptions you're doing in the working backwards process. So I think that's really a multifaceted way to make benefit of that great technology.
Yeah.
Sorry.
No, and then I think just adding to that, right, the key imperative that we really share with a lot of our customers is, have this big vision, have the broader vision, but also so think big and start small, right? Generative AI presents a whole realm of different challenges in terms of application, how we deal with cultural implications, etc. But getting started on that journey is the most important part, right? And solving for, obviously, high priority business cases first so that we can start to get that buy-in more broadly across the organization. Awesome. So I think one other thing I need to land before I get into trouble with my colleagues, is around other talk tracks that innovation and transformation teams is holding over the coming week. So I can see you taking out your phones to get some pictures. But these cover a realm of really interesting and different topics, from obviously how to embark on your broader transformation to looking into a deep dive into working backwards. And last but not least, we got a bit of a call to action here. So if you want to dive deeper with us, you can use the QR code on the screen to request a meeting with the Innovation and Transformations team. And most excitingly, you can check out some of our ebooks and publications linked to the practice, linked to the secondary QR code.
Well, I think that's the sad moment now where we say that's it, right?
That's it.
So thank you so much.
Thank you.